This is part 3 of how to use the Jazz Guitarist Signature Series to expand your improvisational vocabulary. Since many of you might not have the skills to properly organize the phrases you are learning in the context of a jazz standard, I am going to provide you periodically with some written etudes. How this is done is beyond the scope of this series and would require an in-depth study. However, I am going to explain briefly some of the techniques used in order that you have a better idea of the big picture. Number 1, we first must pick a jazz standard that we would like to use as a vehicle to develop our 2-5-1 phrases into a fully fledged solo. I recommend starting out with a tune full of major 2-5-1s such as Tune Up by Miles Davis or Satin Doll by Duke Ellington. You can do this in regular notation or you can tab it out. Keep in mind that if you tab it out, you are going to need to notate the rhythms that you are going to employ. Some advanced players are able to practice this procedure entirely on their instrument without doing any writing. This, of course, requires that they have the music they are soloing over as well as the phrases that they want to incorporate both memorized. In addition, it requires a good understanding of the fretboard, various fingerings, a strong background in harmony, and last but definitely not least, an excellent ear. I gather that the majority of players subscribed to this series don't possess all these attributes, so I am going to proceed to briefly demonstrate a written solo I did using the chord progression to Tune Up by Miles. A. Notate the chords to a full chorus of the chosen standard and perform a light harmonic analysis. Enclose all the 2-5 cadences in parentheses while showing resolution with an arrow whenever the 5 chord or dominant resolves. I am assuming that you understand at least that much if you want to pursue this section. B. Start filling in the cadences you analyze with the phrases you have been practicing. In many instances, this will require that you adapt a chosen phrase to fit the context of the tune. Most of the time, you will have to transpose the phrase and work out an alternate fingering. Other instances will require that you shorten or expand the phrase. Frequently, you will have to alter some notes in a phrase to fit a substitute chord. In conclusion, we have to learn how to mold and shape a phrase both rhythmically and melodically. There are several ways this can be achieved. You can delete some of the notes in the phrase, which is a procedure known as truncation. Other alternatives are diminution, which consists of decreasing the value of the original notes, or augmentation, which consists of augmenting their value. By experimenting with these techniques, you will come up with a wide variety of new phrases. Here are some examples of these techniques as I applied them to a 2-5-1 phrase by Joe Pass. By the way, these examples can be downloaded on the site for easier comparison. This is the original Joe Pass phrase that we are going to work with in the upcoming examples. Next, you are going to hear a MIDI rendition with backup by Band in a Box. You'll notice in the scrolling videos that the notation has been rendered an octave down by Band in a Box. That is because the original file was transposed up an octave for guitar. So keep in mind that the notation that you will be viewing in all the upcoming MIDI renditions are in what is referred to as concert pitch. So here it goes. If If you examine the current example and then go back and compare it to the original, you'll notice it is made up of the identical same succession of pitches, with the difference being that the note values have been reduced from 8th notes to 16th notes. Here we have applied diminution to the overall phrase. This technique comes in handy when you want to convert a 4-bar phrase into a 2-bar one, and will usually yield a double time feel. This is what it sounds like. If you examine this example and then go back and compare it to the original, you'll notice that some of the notes have been deleted. Notice that now some of the notes have longer values to make up for those that were deleted. This again is known as truncation and is a good strategy to turn a busy phrase into one with less motion. And here is what it sounds like. If you take a look at the chord symbols in this example, you'll notice that they form a minor progression. All the notes in the phrase were altered to fit the corresponding mode of each chord. This is known as modal conversion and is a great strategy to recycle all your major 2-5-1 phrases to minor 2-5-1s or vice versa. And this is what it sounds like. This example uses a combination of different techniques or alterations that were introduced in the previous examples. It has undergone modal conversion, truncation, and even a touch of diminution. I hope you are beginning to see the big picture here. The possibilities are endless. This is powerful stuff, and once you understand how to apply the different procedures, you have no excuse not to constantly develop new improvisational vocabulary. Here's what this one sounds like. Next, we have a solo I wrote over the chord progression to Tune Up by Miles Davis. This is a great tune to begin practicing some of the phrases in this series because it consists of several major 2-5-1 cadences in different keys. I'd like to point out that it is beneficial also to explore different fingerings every time the song modulates to a 2-5-1 in a different key. Try this if you want to become technically more proficient with your left hand on the guitar, instead of moving the same set of fingerings up or down the fretboard. In this solo, I have used a combination of the techniques discussed to several phrases in the Jazz Guitarist Signature series. If you listen carefully, you'll notice that it starts out with the original Joe Pass phrase we were previously working with. The remainder of the solo consists of phrases by Kenny Burrell, Wes Montgomery, and Tal Farlow. Be sure to download the notation. You will find that each group of measures contains a description of the artist and phrase number that they are based on. This way you can go back and watch the corresponding video and practice the original phrase individually if you like. For those of you who don't have the ability to organize the phrases into a given chord progression, I will be posting some solos such as this one occasionally. So here is Tune Up Etude number 1. C, write a minimum of 2 additional solos over the same standard chord progression using different phrases each time. The principle here is that we want to program in our playing not only new vocabulary, but we also want to embed a map in our subconscious of alternate routes to get through these chord changes. One solo alone won't do it. Our brains need to store several ways of getting from point A to point B before we can improvise. As a matter of fact, the more solos we practice containing different vocabulary with varied fingerings, the better we will be able to navigate the chord changes when it comes time to improvise.